This is the South African Technology Podcast, where we talk to the end users of technology in business rather than to the vendors. Welcome to TechCentral's Meet the CIO, brought to you today by NTT DATA, where global experience meets local impact. I'm Duncan McLeod, editor of TechCentral, and I'm very pleased now to welcome Anton Fatti, CTO of Healthbridge, to the show. Anton, thank you for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Now, I've heard the name Healthbridge in this market for many, many years. Had a look online. I see you were founded all the way back in 1999 at the peak of the dot-com bubble. The business must have seen a lot of technological change in that time. You haven't been there for that period of time. You, in fact, joined the business about a year ago in February 2025. Before that, you were CTIO, or Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at the South African Revenue Service. And you've also previously worked as Chief Digital Officer at Discovery and as CIO at Lightstone, which is a property group.
It does property analytics, but it's expanded beyond property into automotive and other fields as well.
Okay. So quite a diverse career background, spanning modernization at SARS, Discovery's digital platforms, etc. How have these experiences shaped your philosophy as CTO of Healthbridge?
It's interesting. I've had a varied career. Started off as a developer, did some time in management consulting, and then worked at these small companies, including a growing Lightstone at the time. It was really great to get hands-on in those environments. Mm-hmm. The Discovery opportunity was a chance for me to get involved in bigger projects and see corporate size or corporate scale transformation. And the Chief Digital Officer role, they gave me the opportunity to consult broadly across the entire business and advise them on digital transformation. So that helped me to, I think, position where does digital strategy enable the organizational strategy. And the SARS move, it was an opportunity for me to contribute to a larger modernization program. It was slow to move. Mm-hmm. I felt that at a point the decisions were taking a long time to make, and when this opportunity came up at Healthbridge, I jumped at it. So I really wanted to get my hands dirty. And
I was going to say it must be difficult to be an innovation head in a public sector organization.
There's great people there, and it's just a little bit about the cogs move slowly.
Yeah. And I'm guessing SARS is one of the faster moving organizations in the public sector in South Africa, because they actually are doing some
fantastic work,
interesting stuff, especially around AI now and tax collection.
Absolutely.
But what attracted you to the Healthbridge role? What was it about Healthbridge that?
I think it was a combination of my understanding and passion for the healthcare industry.
Okay.
But I think also the organization itself, even though it's about 200 people, it's still very nimble. It's very much like a startup, and it has that, I think, a real passion and connection of its leadership team to its purpose, vision. People are very engaged, but it still has that, I think that startup feel of you want to get involved, you want to make decisions quickly.
Okay.
You're okay to accept some kind of learning as part of the process. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that has put us in a good place to be able to leverage this evolving technology landscape when other companies of our age have found it difficult.
So you've spent most of all of your career in a tech type of role. Was that always your intention when you were in school? Did you think I want to have a career in IT, or what did you want to be when you were?
No, it's interesting. I didn't really know what I wanted to be. I loved art. I did well in maths. I thought about going into architecture or medicine, engineering. I did something generic, just a general BSc, and then I loved the programming that I did as part of applied maths, and then ended up doing a computer science.
That led you in that direction. You weren't one of those youngsters who spent their time in front of a computer.
Well, I did. I think everybody in those days was playing computer games. From whatever it was. There was Lemmings or
Lemmings. I remember Lemmings.
Doom or whatever the games we were playing in those days. But I only really discovered programming when I was at university, but I loved the problem solving of it. I loved the idea that you could come from an idea and that you could create something at the end of that.
Okay.
So I've spent about 5 years after university working in the UK as a programmer. So I've got a tech background. In those days, it was your full tech, a full stack tech. I was doing the database, the front end, the middle tier as well. I think at a point I realized that I wasn't going to be a top developer. And so I made a shift. I went and did an MBA and then went into management consulting for a few years. So that gave me a bit of a balance of the business acumen, I suppose.
Yes.
But with a firm grounding on the tech side. So that's the path that my career then followed. Yeah.
Okay. I'm always intrigued when organizations, does Healthbridge have a CIO as well as a management?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So you look after that function as well?
It's effectively a CIO, CTO role.
CTO role,
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I'm always interested, and we've got the CTO of Capitec coming on the show soon, and they also have a CIO, and I always wonder if there's a lot of overlap between those two roles in organizations. How do you see the role of the CTO versus the role of the CIO? And I know you wear both hats at Healthbridge.
Yeah, so I mean, I can talk to what it looked like or what it looks like at Discovery. The CIO was probably the person who sat in the ExCo meetings, was thinking about the overall IT strategy. Actually, Derek Wilcox was previously at DATA, it's now NTT.
Yes.
I really enjoyed working with him, and he played the group CIO role. The CTO was more focused on infrastructure and operations, running the business, more like a COO for the technology space. That was the kind of a role.
So making sure the data center's humming and...
Exactly.
Okay.
So CIO was in the discussions about what does the technology strategy look like for the group, and how does that align to, or how does the business strategy inform the technology strategy, involved in, I suppose, the governance and the risk management and so on. So I think it was maybe a slightly, in the Discovery world, a slightly different role. For us at Healthbridge, I think it's just a title, the CTO. Effectively, it's a combination of them both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Healthbridge has been around since late 90s, and I seem to recall it came out of Dimension Data originally, but you quickly attracted investments from Discovery and MedScheme.
MedScheme were the two, yes.
They come on as shareholders with Dimension Data in the early days.
Right.
Who owns the business today?
It's privately owned now.
Privately owned.
We have some investment from external investors, but it's primarily owned by the shareholders.
Okay.
And some small amount of investment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as CTO of Healthbridge, what does your day-to-day entail? What's keeping you busy?
Interesting. It's a combination. Interesting. I mean, Healthbridge is a tech business, and it has business people who've got strong tech acumen as well. So I've come into a business which has got good foundations and very strong tech people across the business. There's been some amount of consolidating of tech functions under my area, so development teams who were previously in business units now moving into my area. A lot of it is providing high-level vision and, I suppose, structuring of what we're doing to the teams, helping that connecting between the strategy and the business strategy and then what we're executing on. Sometimes it's just about asking questions to help teams think about where we need to go. Or generally, for the past few months, I've been quite involved with thinking about strategy for certain of our products that are critical for the next few years. We see great growth opportunities on our clinical and practice management software. At the same time, we're looking at how do we ensure that what we work on is crisply aligned to our strategy. So going through an exercise at the moment with our executive team to prioritize all the work that we're doing and actually say, below a certain threshold, we're just going to stop doing that work because it's distracting and it makes you busy, but not necessarily effective. So it's an interesting journey that something I've heard about organizations doing, but never really seen it play out to this level of rigor.
Do you engage directly with clients as well and get feedback from them on what they'd like to see from a technology perspective?
Personally, not a lot. I mean, for instance, at conferences, I'll chat to people. But generally, our product and customer experience
it's more of an
teams
internal role.
Are doing those things. Yes, I'm generally more internal, although partnerships, external-facing vendors, tech companies and so on that we work with, I'll engage with them. We've got some close partnerships with. We work on a Google stack, so we're often engaging with Google, both on what their new products are and asking if we can get into conversations with experts in certain areas. So those are the kind of things that I will get involved with, and evaluating technologies that will have benefit to the business.
So give me the helicopter view of Healthbridge. What does it do? Who does it work with? I know you work very closely with medical professionals, with their, what do you call them, their outlets. They're not their outlets.
Yeah, their practices.
Their practices, thank you, that's the word I'm looking for. How many clients do you have, and what solutions do you provide to them?
We've got about 5,000 practices for certain of our products. We are looking to, especially on our practice management suite, which is relatively well established. We've got a new version of that we're building out at the moment. We've rolled that out to some of our doctor practices at the moment. And as soon as we've got new features to meet the rest of that feature parity, we will migrate the rest of those practices across. And we've got great feedback on that product. The core of the business in the past was in our switching of claims. So every time there's a claim that comes from a doctor practice or from a hospital or pathology lab and needs to go through to a medical aid, for instance, that would come through us. That is now, let's call it our heritage business. It still is a big chunk of our revenue and operational focus, but it is less of a strategic drive for us right now. And then our clinical system, which is the newest in the block, is also a key strategic focus. That is where a lot of the focus of our AI development is happening. But there's another piece of our business as well, which has got a combination of established platform for companies who do outsourced revenue cycle management for doctor practices, so collecting monies from either medical aids or from patients. And we also have recently launched our own internal bureau called that we're running to that we're offering directly to practices as well. So they can choose if they want to have administrators in their organization collect money, or they can outsource it to us.
I imagine there's a lot of integration work that you've had to do, because I imagine all these doctors will have their own little systems, homemade systems, some of them. How do you work with all that technology that's out in the field?
Yeah, look, I think we've got good at integrations. And it's interesting to see, we've got some of our integrations have been around for a long time. And although we've now got more modern ones, sometimes we have to work in lockstep with our partners on that, depending on their technology sophistication. We'll work with them on that. But it's a lot of our focus is we've got operational product operations teams who are very good at diagnosing, identifying where things are going wrong, working with our partners and so on. And we're, I think, good at being able to define specifications, work with third parties to.
So you have a bunch of middleware and wrappers that you put around Data, they're coming out XML and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And in some cases, depending on sometimes it'll be XML, sometimes it'll be SOAP, or we'll be able to switch between them based on that. And I think we're the newer models or new platforms that we built, especially some of the cloud-based ones, are even more flexible than they were in the past. I think in the past it was much more arduous to do those kind of integrations, but now it is increasingly efficient and robust.
Yes. Okay.
Using new technologies.
Okay. And are your solutions mainly software as a service based? Are they cloud based? Or what does it look like?
Primarily software as a service. Obviously, our switching business, that's internal to us, so people integrate with us. But then, yes, practice management software, clinical systems, and the software that our bureau team uses internally, as well as third parties use, is all software as a service. So we've got basically web-based, generally, platforms, or it can be an integration with them.
Okay. And you signed an agreement a couple of years ago, I believe, with Google Cloud.
Yes.
Why Google specifically, and what has it allowed you to do?
So we've always seen our partnership with Google as being very important. We saw them as a leader in the space. Some point, I can't remember the exact year, I wasn't at Healthbridge at the time, but before COVID, Healthbridge had moved over to Google Cloud from a Google Workspace perspective. So when COVID hit, it was a seamless transition. It was more the logistics of moving people and connectivity and so on. I think that most organizations had, but it was pretty much a seamless process. during that process, we also looked at the technology stack that Google was providing in the cloud, and rapidly built some platforms during COVID that were test pieces for what has now become some of our main products. The first one was there was a vaccine. I think actually the first one was a telemedicine portal, so that doctors could do video consultations with patients. And another one was the vaccine portal that we built for registering vaccines. I think integrated with some of the medical aids, and we turned that around in a matter of 2 weeks. So it was. I think we saw the power of the Google platform stack, and have then continue to focus on that. Although we still have, or expand on that, although we still have some tech that gets built on in other technologies, Java. We still have some on-prem systems and so on. But yes, we see a lot of value in that Google relationship.
Okay, and is it making the lives of medical professionals easier? What compared to what they were using prior to these cloud solutions? I presume a hodgepodge of internal systems, on-premises stuff, developed by hospital groups if they work for hospital groups and that sort of thing. Having a SaaS-based, cloud-based solution, what does it actually mean for medical professionals? Does it save them time? Does it allow them to see more patients? Does it allow them to be more productive?
Yeah, I suppose you could look at it on two sides. I think the big focus for a doctor in a clinical practice. So I'll chat about the administrative part of the business separately, but I think there's a lot of effort that happens not just in the consultation, but taking notes, filling in those yellow files, and doing referral letters, sick notes, and things like that. So that we've seen dramatic improvements in reducing the amount of workload for a doctor. So doctors now using our clinical system can just have a verbal conversation with a patient without taking any notes. They can just focus on the patient with a recording, and we called it an ambient scribe, just listening to that conversation, obviously with consent from the patient beforehand. And at the end of that consultation, there'll be a structured clinical note, there'll be a care plan for the patient, and it will suggest what the prescription should be as well. So that can dramatically reduce the amount of administrative work that the doctor needs to do. Some doctors are saying they're getting close to an hour of time savings per day by just using that platform.
Wow.
And then we've got this is a lot about what our innovation lab is doing, is coming up with new ideas. So saying, when we get pathology results coming in, let's get it analyzed by AI and look at the patient's clinical history and say, in the context of this clinical history, what is the appropriate next step, and recommending what that next step is to both the doctor as well as to the patient. So the doctor can send them a reminder that they should come in for a consultation. And and then just very quickly be able to write up a sick note based on some information about the patient.
Are there risks in using AI in clinical practice?
Absolutely. We are.
And how do you work around those?
Clinical data is one of those categories of special personal information as categorized by POPIA. So we are very conscious and rigorous about both the tooling that we use, keeping our data secure. We've got strong policies around AI. We've got an AI usage policy that clearly sets out our usage. We do audits, internal audits on our tech stack and architecture and approaches, and we do external assessments as well of our security posture. So I think it's an ongoing journey, but we take it very seriously, and we feel that what we're trying to do is also empowering the doctor. So our AI solutions don't try to disintermediate the doctor as part of that, but rather provide doctor with simplify their role, their workload, but they're the one who would sign off on whatever gets saved into the clinical record. So there is that collaboration aspect of what we're doing.
So the doctor always has the last say.
A human in the loop.
Do you build your own LLMs, specific LLMs, and you don't?
No.
So which LLMs do you use?
So we're using many of them are actually the Gemini Gemini LLMs for the work, for instance, the pathology work that we did. The ambient scribe that I mentioned was using an LLM that was built by a third party that we have a partnership and a shareholding in, a company called Nora AI.
Okay.
For most of the rest of the work that we're doing, we are using off-the-shelf cloud-based LLMs, not
okay,
training.
so when you talk to Gemini, it's a similar solution
Exactly.
that the doctor's using.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. But then we are providing additional.
Does it not make sense to use LLMs that are specifically trained for providing medical advice?
There are, yes. So the ambient scribe one is specifically trained for that,
Okay.
and then we will use. We're looking at the Google. I think it's called MedGemma.
Okay.
Stack as well. I don't have the detail of that, but yes, we're exploring. I think there's a combination of understanding for the specific use case, the clinical, what the clinical rigor is required for that,
yes.
and if it needs to tick those kind of clinical use requirements, then we will go for a clinically certified system. If it's something which is simplifying administration or simply having a conversation with a patient, so we have a WhatsApp system that is more like a conversational assistant for a patient, then we'll just use off-the-shelf products for those.
Is there anything you can do about the hallucinations which these AIs suffer from? Because I guess the last thing you want is for the AI in the clinical setting to be saying, well, this patient has cancer, the best solution is to give him some aspirin.
Yes, exactly. I think it is the combination of getting the right tools for it. I think also defining the boundaries for it, the guardrails within when you prompt it and say that you must use this information for it, you must use this framework, but also going with clinically approved solutions is the approach of doing. But we constantly are looking at that, and it's a reason that we want to use the doctor, or not use the doctor, but enable the doctor to be part of that process, so that it's not
the AI making the final decision.
It's making recommendations.
Yeah. We know there's a shortage of medical professionals in South Africa, particularly in certain specialty areas.
Yes.
What impact do you see this technology having on those professionals? Is this going to help lighten the burden for them?
I think so. I think we're seeing, as I mentioned, people say, doctors saving time as part of their day-to-day. And I think what we'll see is opportunities to leverage this technology to create more access. For instance, what we're seeing is that for some doctor practices, they have peaks and troughs of demand during the day. In those troughs, there's the potential to say, if we can match them with a teleconsultation, let's say a nurse who's with a patient who now needs to have a doctor consultation. We're seeing more of that happening. Organizations that are providing those kind of consultations. If we could, in an ecosystem sense, be able to connect into some of these, we could actually allow doctors to provide that telemedicine support for patients in settings which are not necessarily necessarily face to face. I think as a result, we could dramatically increase coverage in the country of specialty and high skilled doctor advice for those patients.
How receptive are doctors to AI in your experience? What has their reaction to it been?
It's interesting. In the past, I think there was more hesitation than what we're seeing more recently. Now, actually, there's a lot of demand for it. What we're seeing is we do a presentation at a conference, for instance, the ambient scribe or some of the AI supported decision support tools, and we find doctors queuing up outside our stand asking for when they can get access.
Okay.
So it's been an interesting journey. I think you find a range of personalities and
in any industry, I suppose you have that,
and openness. But I think in general, the move towards more electronic health record systems is also driving an openness towards this. Whereas in the past, we'd see a small percentage of practices who took our practice management software looking for a clinical product as well. Now it's more than 50%. I think maybe even more than 60% of practices are also looking for a clinical system as part of that.
Interesting. Of course, a lot of the patients probably going to visit the GP now are saying, well, I had this conversation with ChatGPT. I think it used to be, I Googled this issue and I think I might have this problem. Now it's, I had a long conversation with ChatGPT and I'm convinced I've got this issue.
Yes, I think it's good for the doctor to be able to have, additional support, some evidence-based responses to that. So I think empowering the doctor is an important and ongoing.
Yeah. So it's infusing, AI is being infused into the patient side and into the medical professional side of the equation, which is interesting. How far are we away from, and I know there's a lot of rules in this space, but are we at a point potentially or in the next couple of years where we could have AIs diagnosing what's wrong with us without a doctor involved?
It's going to be interesting to see how the market develops. My sense is that for the foreseeable future that you'll have a doctor in the loop.
Just because of the risk?
Yeah, I think from a risk, I think you may find that there are platforms out there that will start offering these kind of advice, but they'll have some disclaimers saying, don't take this.
I've noticed that whenever you talk to Gemini or ChatGPT, it always says, please note, I am not a medical professional.
Exactly.
And
I think you'll probably see more of that. Having said that, the power of these models is changing exponentially.
Yeah.
We see every release of a new version of one of the LLMs will create dramatic improvements in its capabilities.
Yes.
Our innovation lab is looking at how they can shorten their time from idea to value, and that they're seeing the quality of the output is increasing dramatically as each new version.
It's remarkable, and it's not just in healthcare; it's across the board, programming, you name it.
Well, exactly, and their role in that space is more like a programming role. That they're coming up with an idea, having they'll record a web call, transcribe that into a business case, business requirement document, technical requirements document, architecture document. Yeah. All of these assets that are just being generated so that they could go within a matter of days from an idea to a working prototype.
Where do you think this is going? I mean, a couple of years from now, 3-4 years, I know it's a long way to look into the future, especially when it comes to AI. But how do you think a typical patient-doctor interaction is going to change in the coming years as a result of AI involvement?
I think fundamentally the way that we see it is that the personal aspect of that patient-doctor relationship is the core, and that needs to continue. I think what we'll see is far more effective decision support for the doctor. The doctor can't keep up to date on all of the latest research and all of the latest trials or medication that's available. So sometimes it is a bit of a trial and error approach that they end up taking, trying a well understood treatment for a condition, and then adjusting that based on what they see the feedback is. And so I think what you will see is a more complete or a more empowered doctor like decision making.
It's like their co-pilot, in effect.
Exactly. It's like an assistant. And
it's like having another doctor next to them.
Well, exactly. It's almost like having a professor next to them talking about it. So that maybe not...
Who's up to date on everything that's happening.
Up to date on all of that stuff. And so I think what you'll see is maybe more of that. I think the patient engagement outside the consultation will also change, I think, dramatically. So I think a lot of the challenge that doctors face at the moment is they'll see a patient, engage with them, talk about what a care plan looks like, and then that patient goes off until at some point in the future they come back. And whether they've complied or haven't complied is somewhat uncertain. And I think creating that kind of engagement post-consultation without the doctor needing to be involved in every step of the way, to say, look, let's remind the patient every day that they need to be taking this medication for these number of days and that they need to schedule a follow-up appointment and ask how they're feeling, and if they're not doing well, then recommend a follow-up visit. So I think what we'll see in future is maybe a bit more of a holistic journey. It's almost like a care team, but with an individual doctor. As in the past, you'd maybe have had a nurse or someone else for a high-risk patient, calling them up and so on. So I think that's probably where it will move to, being more of a longer-term kind of engagement with that patient across multiple care plans and the adherence to that as well.
How should regulators and policy makers be thinking about this stuff at the moment? Is it something that they should stay away from just for the moment while the innovation happens, or do you think there's a need to get involved at this stage?
I think it's a kind of a Goldilocks question. You don't want the regulator to stand away, step away and create the space for problems arising, poor care or. Yeah, I think there is a risk.
But you also don't want to stifle innovation.
I think it's critical that it doesn't get stifled. And I think we are seeing that in some places, that the regulations have come in a little bit heavy-handed, and as a result, it has slowed down and throttled the innovation. So there is that balance. I think an open and non-confrontational relationship between regulators and innovators and the market, I think, is important as part of this. I think there should be an open conversation about it. I think in some cases it's quite hands-off. And it shouldn't be lawyers or sitting in dark rooms coming with regulations, and it shouldn't just be innovators sitting in dark rooms coming up with innovations. So I think there needs to be some.
Don't regulate balance. Too much, but keep an eye on it.
Yeah,
and to develop the regulations.
And I think be able to nimbly address stuff as it comes up.
Yeah. Okay. Are you seeing, as technology advances, are you seeing new roles or new skills emerging inside your teams because of
definitely
AI? Yeah.
It's interesting. I mentioned we've got this innovation lab. Innovation lab is primarily staffed with people who are multi-skilled generalists, but who are quick at learning and adopting new technologies. Once we start handing that over to other teams, we're realizing actually there are skills that they are working with day to day that doesn't neatly fit into our software development, architecture, testing, product management roles. Who's responsible for training and ensuring that the LLMs are performing as they're meant to be? Doesn't necessarily always sit with the data science teams if it's a more operational role. So we do see some of that, some of those roles becoming more important. At the moment, some of these roles sit within the innovation lab, like the prompt engineering space. We see big value in what they learn through their rapid experimentation. At the moment, we're handing it over, because we're a small business, we're just handing that over to the rest of the teams and upskilling them. But I think we will see some of those roles becoming standalone roles.
Okay. So are you seeing your IT people having to relearn, or not relearn, but rethink their roles and the technology stacks they understand? And
even within their roles, that's changing at the moment significantly. We see product managers now vibe coding prototypes rather than writing documents of prototypes, and development teams now needing to manage software that's been built using AI.
Yes.
And they need to be good at using those tools, not just for code completion, but actually for generation of code and reviewing architectures and things.
Yeah.
So that, I think, even beyond separate roles being created, I think definitely a reimagining of what individual roles looks like. And similar to the doctors, them having a co-pilot developer or co-pilot architect who can bounce ideas off and so on.
Yeah, it's changing every industry. I mean, we see it in media as well. It's happening across the board. It doesn't matter what the role is. It seems that AI can help with it.
Absolutely.
In some way or other.
Absolutely. I think a lot comes down to the individual and how open they are to trying new things.
Yes.
And I think not feeling threatened, because in the end, and I think this is the job of the organization, is to let people feel that although things are going to change dramatically, that actually the fundamental value that a person brings into this is that the connection, that we can also help from the human connection and the strategic connection as part of this. I think it's an interesting journey, and we're working hard to not only focus on our early adopters, but also on the teams who need to go on a journey.
I want to chat a bit about these labs that you've mentioned.
Yes.
You specifically chatted about the iLab or Innovation Lab.
Innovation Lab,
But
yes.
you've also got something called the eLab.
The Efficiency Lab.
Efficiency Lab.
Yeah.
Just take us through what these two labs are, what they look like, and their role within the organization.
Yes, so the Innovation Lab is focused almost entirely on innovations within our clinical space, looking at taking ideas from all the way through from a concept through to a working prototype into a pilot and then handing that over into other teams. And so they're constantly looking at how to improve their process and how to reimagine and leverage the tools. So
what is their remit? Just do cool stuff?
well, they actually have they're quite well guided by a set of governing principles, priorities, and so on. Really, but within that they've got quite a wide remit. Basically, how do we make our clinical product as attractive and engaging to our doctors as possible? So they will run experiments, build a new product, a new feature, and test it out with a beta group of doctors and see how the engagement is, what the feedback looks like, and then pivot or scale.
Right.
So that's their focus. The Efficiency Lab is really internally focused on the business and saying, how can we look at not only AI technologies, but any type of automation to create efficiencies across the business? And initially, that focus has been on just automating processes, following the same kind of steps. But what we see is also an evolution of that process from where previously you do things in a certain sequence of steps. Now, we're saying, actually, can we use agents to answer a problem, give them the tools to be able to respond to that, and give them some guardrails and also a certain thresholds within which they can work, but actually allow us to reinvent entirely that process using AI. And I think that's very exciting about how the technology is enabling this entirely new way of thinking about things.
Okay.
I
want to put you on the spot a bit here, but what would you say is the most successful idea that the iLab has produced so far?
We have, I think there are a few. The ambient scribe, when it first came out, has been transformative in terms of the uptake. I would say it's not a breakthrough idea because you can buy it with there are other platforms out there, but there are they've got decision tools such as this pathology messenger, which will review pathology results that come in and then notify the doctor if there's anything that is untoward or recommend the next steps on that. So
I've never tried this before, but if you upload your X-rays to one of these AIs, does it actually know what it's looking at?
That's interesting. We're not actually doing that yet. What we would look is we would look at the
blood results.
We're looking at blood results for now, and we could look at the radiologist report as well. There are separate tools, and I think they are. I think there's quite a lot of work on this that is helping the radiologist in their practice, providing them with decision support on the X-rays itself. But we're not in that game, we don't actually get the X-rays themselves. That generally stays within the radiology.
That must be a much more complex thing to do than reading a pathology report.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah,
I've done that actually. I uploaded my cholesterol test results into ChatGPT, and it said, "Well, this is what we found, and this is what you need to do." And
we work with Gemini a lot, and what some of our colleagues are doing are creating gems that will help them and say, "Well." Our CEO, who's a real proponent of us adopting AI, has got a gem which helps him with his training and running marathons.
Right. Okay.
So he says, "Look, this gem is a highly skilled and effective coach for a running coach, and I think you could probably do something similar to say, here are my blood test results. You are my wellness coach. How would you recommend I respond to this information?"
Yeah. It can actually allow people to hack their health to a much greater extent, because you go for your 6 monthly blood tests, you provide that to your agent, your personal health agent.
Absolutely.
You connect it to these apps like MyFitnessPal or or a chronometer and have all your dietary information included, and it can start to build up a picture of what your exercise and eating records look like, and what your cholesterol and other health markers look like, and it actually can start to give you real advice on how to live a healthier life.
Absolutely. I think that ecosystem of those is going to become more powerful over time, and the integrations between them will be better.
I'm sure Discovery is a company that's heading rapidly in that direction.
Absolutely. And I think they are looking at using, from my experience, that ecosystem, bringing in the various sources. They tend to want to own that end-to-end customer experience within their Vitality, for instance, or within the health pathways and so on. So you need to be a member at Discovery to be able to benefit from it. But I think it's becoming more accessible to people.
You've said before that you'd rather disrupt your own business model before someone else does that for you. What's the hardest part of doing that?
It's interesting. I mean, a lot of our business model disruption that we're doing at the moment is being driven by AI. And in a way, it's similar to other disruptions that have come before. Digital disruption, it's not a new concept, digital transformation. And I think similar to other cases, the technology is the enabler for this. But at the end, it comes down to the people. It's you disrupting a status quo that people have got used to. And so I think creating an enabling environment for changing that kind of corporate inertia, I think, is the biggest challenge in this. And as I mentioned earlier, Healthbridge has got that startup type of feel where the senior leadership team is very engaged, is very involved in getting hands-on with these kind of strategically important initiatives. So I think we've done a good job at linking the vision and the strategy to this organizational reinvention. It translates into individual and team targets being linked to outcomes which depend on adoption. So, for instance, I mean, as I mentioned at the Innovation Lab, their goals is to dramatically increase the speed at which they do things. They wouldn't be able to do it without adopting. But then also, I think the championing adoption of this new way of working. Our CEO will share his experience with his gem. We use Notebook LM a lot to summarize things. I think showcasing, sharing the good work that other teams have done, and sometimes a bit of push and pull. We see sometimes even a bit of fear of missing out helps some team members. We've seen people who went from being maybe AI skeptics, suddenly seeing people who were maybe less technically skilled than them doing quite impressive things, and then rapidly adopting so that they could keep up. But it's not an easy task, I think.
But it sounds like almost culturally you need to have an open mind to new technology, and you have to be willing to experiment with it.
Yes. Yeah, and I think
if you're going to put your head in the sand.
Absolutely. Be open to learning rapidly and failing occasionally, but picking yourself up and keeping going. I mean, we're having to build new skills within our IT operations teams around FinOps, so that we can quickly identify where there are cloud functions running out of control and incurring additional costs. So, but we're okay with some of these kind of school fees along the way. I think it is primarily a cultural journey.
Okay, it sounds like you've got it right internally. Anton, before I let you go, I'm asking all my guests on the show for their top productivity hack. Is there something that you do, something that you've discovered recently, doesn't have to be recent, a piece of technology, an app, or some process that has had a meaningful impact on your productivity? And if you have, what is it?
I actually mentioned it earlier. I mean, we use Notebook LM a lot, and that has been
it's an amazing tool. That's
fantastic.
A Google product as well.
It's a Google product as well.
If anyone doesn't know it, you ingest any source, could be a website, a PDF document, anything, and then you can then turn that into a a podcast, and I think there's video features in it too.
Yes, and you can ask it questions as well, and
you can interrupt the podcast.
Yes,
it's rather phenomenal. In fact, I use it quite a lot when I've got to go out to do an interview or something, and I don't have time to prep. I just feed a bunch of information to it, get in the car, listen to the podcast. By the time I arrive, I'm fully prepped and ready to ask smart questions.
Absolutely. And the other one, I think, just the Gemini tools that we get as part of our Google Workspace. Just meeting summaries, it's fantastic. We really means that people don't need to attend all the meetings, and we don't need to have people writing copious notes afterwards. Yes. We can just get a summary, and if there's this piece, we can go into the transcript. I think it has dramatically helped our just efficiency as a team and as a business overall.
Yeah, for sure. Exciting conversation. Anton Fatti is Chief Technology Officer at Healthbridge. Thank you so much for chatting with Meet the CIO and sharing your insights with TechCentral's audience today. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.